for tuning in to my weekly updates, a show where you are subjected to my poor editing. Tonight, we're going to talk about some good news. We're also going to show my interview with Ryan Catalani with the Hawaii Children's Action Network and Landon Lee, a student at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. With that said, let's get to some of the positive news of this week. 79-year-old Paul Greenslade was discharged from Straub Medical Center after being hospitalized with the coronavirus. Here's a look at his send-off. The American Cancer Society's Clarence T.C. Ching Hope Lodge will be opening its doors to healthcare workers at the Queens Medical Center to rest in between shifts and to sleep overnight. The Hawaii Food Bank is pledging to purchase $200,000 worth of local produce to keep local farmers at work. And finally, this morning, our campaign handed out hundreds of face masks to the community, which is why I am dressed like this. Because beginning tonight at 12 a.m., a new rule will go into effect that will require everyone to wear face masks when entering an essential business. That is some of the good news that we have this week. So tonight, my interview is with Ryan Catalani with the Hawaii Children's Action Network to talk about some of the resources that they have available to working families across the state of Hawaii. All right. Hey, Ryan, thank you for joining me today.
Hey, Adrian. Thanks for calling. Glad to be here.
Of course. Thank you so much. So Ryan is part of the Hawaii Children's Action Network. And could you tell us what you do?
Sure. Like you mentioned, I work at Hawaii Children's Action Network, which is a nonprofit dedicated to creating a unified voice for Hawaii's children. So that means ensuring all children are healthy, safe, and ready to learn. And we do this through advocacy, leadership development, research, public policy work, a bunch of stuff. And I am our Director of Advancement, so I work on our fundraising and communications.
Fantastic. So during this whole crisis that we're going through, what is Hawaii Children's Action Network doing to, continue business as usual?
Yeah. A lot, actually. So we, it's kind of funny. We were actually going to have a fundraising dinner on March 12th, which was like when all this had just started. And we went back and forth for like a week on whether we wanted to proceed with it, and ultimately didn't, just because we saw where this was headed. And obviously that was the right decision. But ever since then, since March 13th or so, we've been working remotely. And a lot of our emphasis has shifted to this COVID response. So, we had been working previously on bringing the community together around the legislative session. So working together with other nonprofits and other advocates to build this unified voice for children in the legislative session. So, we had this set of 25 or so policy priorities that we set aside for the crisis now. Ultimately, though, we've been still doing the same types of work. So we have been working on convening our coalitions around, like the Working Families Coalition around economic justice issues related to COVID-19. We have a coalition of early learning and childcare providers that are obviously going to be are being affected by this. What else? One of our new things that we started was a website that has a map and a list of resources to help families cope with COVID-19. And, this is important because there have been a lot of new things that have been popping up, which is great. I mean, I think the community response has clearly been so generous. Everyone wants to pitch in and help in some way. We have the DOE grab and go or pick up and go school meal distributions. There are other nonprofits doing food distributions. There's childcare for turn that off. There's childcare for essential workers, all kinds of things. And so what we realized was that, we wanted to make it easier for people to find out what's available to them, what's nearby them, and get in contact with those places. So we put up this website that now we have a couple of partners working with us to keep these resources updated. Aloha Harvest, Chef Hui, Hawaii Appleseed, Hawaii Public Health Institute, and a couple others. And between all of us, we probably update, add 10 to 20 new things a day still.
Oh, that's actually really good. What was that? What is the website called?
Website is covid19.hawaii-can.org.
Teen.hawaii/can?
Hawaii-can.org.
Perfect. Yeah. So have you been working with families that are going through or affected by this crisis?
So, HCAN is not as much a direct service provider. I am on the board of 2 organizations that are more focused on direct services, so one is Family Promise, which serves families experiencing homelessness. And the other is Pacific Gateway Center, which works with immigrants, refugees, vulnerable communities around the state. And both of those have been impacted and been serving people who have been impacted too. So, Family Promise operates on a very community-based model. I'm not sure if you're familiar, but the way Family Promise provides shelters by partnering with local congregations who sign up for a week of what they call hosting, or letting these families stay at their church or their house of worship for that week overnight. And so this is typically a great way to get the community involved in ending homelessness. I actually used to work at the Family Promise in Delaware before I came back here. But as you can imagine, there's some concerns about, any homeless shelters or shelter programs that involve a lot of people passing by each other in close spaces. And so, Family Promise had to quickly find different ways to shelter or house these families, because that main program was suspended. And then Pacific Gateway Center has started doing these weekly food distributions at its Kaka'ako location right across from Salt.
I'm familiar with that.
Yeah, so it's on Fridays.
Oh, cool. So, I have to ask everyone this. When do you think this entire thing will end and we can all go back to normal?
Yeah. Well, I think one thing to note is it's probably not a binary. It's probably not going to be, we're done on this particular day. It's probably going to be a more gradual thing, both on the biggest and the smallest scales. I think different countries are going to be able to get back to normal on different timelines. Different states within the U.S., as we've seen, are certainly going to have different timelines. And then probably within each island here, we're going to have a slightly different recovery. I think it's pretty phenomenal that Hawaii has had relatively few cases, as it could have. And I think that, is just credit to, the whole community really advocating to take this seriously from the very beginning, which is good. I think we so far have averted something that could have been far worse. So, with that in mind, I think, in some ways, we don't want to let up too soon, because, the virus is still here, and we've seen a lot of transmission has occurred when people come into the state, or I guess go out of the state too. And so we want to be really careful about that. I don't know. I think it's probably at least another year until things get back to something picturing normal.
That is sad.
And you know,
Yeah.
I wonder like how normal things will be. I think maybe there will be an increased awareness of just infectiousness in general. So maybe people will start taking more precautions. You know, in some
Yeah.
Asian countries, you know, mask wearing is a lot more common. That might not be a bad thing to adopt or keep doing here. Maybe people will be more cognizant of you know, staying home when they're sick, and maybe the government will have more support for people to stay home when they're sick. So hopefully we do
Yeah.
see some positive changes too.
I've always said that it's so weird that Republican states like Arizona have paid sick leave,
Mm.
but here in Hawaii we have a Democratic governor,
Yeah,
a, a supermajority in the House of Representatives, and only one Republican in the state Senate, and yet we still
right,
don't have it.
right.
You know, it just blows my mind, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
yeah. I mean, I think that that also speaks to like how uneven it is just across the country. You know, there's some federal efforts too for, you
Mhm.
know, to ensure that all workers have paid family leave or paid sick days. And, you know, we saw a little bit of movement just with these COVID response bills from Congress, but,
Yeah.
you know, those are meant to be temporary. But, you know, you think just because you live in one state doesn't mean you should have better healthcare or, you know, be able to stay home when you're sick. It's so arbitrary, you know, and you know it doesn't do any of us any good, no matter where you are.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, and we're supposed to have one of the best health, well, at least Hawaii.
Hmm.
We're supposed to have the best health coverage in the country with the Hawaii Health Connector, but you know, we still aren't wrapping up testing.
Right.
We made poor investments into public health. We defunded a lot of our hospitals, and some of our hospitals aren't even doing common sense measures to save them costs and spend those money elsewhere so they can prevent something like this from happening.
Hmm.
Most recently, as of today, the governor proposed 20% cuts to essential employees, not on the federal but state level.
Hmm.
What do you make of that, especially considering a lot of these are teachers with
Right.
families and everything?
I mean, you know, on one hand, you know, I guess you think what's the easiest thing to cut, and whether you're the government, I guess, or
Hmm.
a private company, you think staff.
Yeah,
Um, you know, on the other hand, on a much bigger hand, it's just pretty surprising that, you know, it's not like um, we all know that everyone is going through a tough time,
yeah.
um, and we all know that um, you know, if we want to get the economy moving again, it's going to take all of us, you know.
Hmm.
And so, you know, to take out um, to put so many employees, you know, the state government employees, what, like 50,000 employees at least,
Yeah.
to put so many more people on the precipice when we already know that um, working families in Hawaii are struggling financially, even in good times,
Hmm.
good times meaning a couple months ago. Uh,
When things were normal.
when working families are struggling in good times, it just seems so shocking that, you know, one of the first moves that we propose is cutting people's pay.
Yeah. And you know, many people think that government employees have these cushiony jobs and are paid a lot with all these benefits, but you know, they still have to face the cost of living in Hawaii, which is
Right,
extremely high.
right. And you know, you look at teachers, for example, which you know would be one of the groups potentially affected by this. And Hawaii has already has a teacher shortage, already has trouble attracting and retaining teachers here because, you know, they already didn't pay very well, and the cost of living is already so high here.
Mhm.
And so, if anything, this is just going to set back um, what was already a major problem for our public education system. Um, Although, you know, if anything, I mean, this is one of those things that affects like a generation, you know,
Yeah.
because if you don't invest in children, I mean, uh, what chance do we have?
Hmm. I agree. I always say that the best thing for businesses would be the smartest workforce
Hmm.
and the healthiest workforce.
Right.
So health and education.
Yep. Yeah. And feeling, I think it shouldn't be controversial that people should feel comfortable, like should be comfortable to live here. Not saying that everyone needs to live in a luxury high-rise tower, just that people shouldn't have to worry about losing their housing because they
Yeah.
live paycheck to paycheck, or that they're going to lose their health insurance if they lose their job, or all of these things that were problems before, but if anything are magnified like to the max by this sudden shutdown
Yeah.
of the economy.
Yeah. It's kind of, it's depressing. It's kind of sad, but let's move on to something more positive. Let's say a family is struggling right now.
Mhm.
And these families have kids.
Mhm.
What would be your recommendation for them to get help, and what are the steps you think that they should take?
Yeah. Well, two things come to mind. Anyone is certainly welcome to look at our list of resources at our website. I think now we have close to 500 things listed. So some of those are in-person places where you can pick up, free food, get tested if you meet the criteria, and it has a list of online resources also. So places where you can find financial assistance, explainers about your rights related to housing, or explanations of the new federal relief packages. We have all that on the website. That might be one place. The other thing to do is probably call 211, which is Aloha United Way's hotline, and they are very connected to a lot of the resources, not just during COVID-19, but throughout the year, just in general. So I would say AUW is, the most equipped to help people navigate for their specific needs. And a lot of people have apparently their call volume increased by 1,000% since this crisis. So, but the neat thing is that they do offer language support. So if you don't speak English, then you can get a translator. They'll provide a translator. And the other thing with AUW is that they recently announced a fund to help people with their with housing. So if people are struggling with their housing payments, there are some criteria to meet. I believe you have to be under 80% of the area median income, things like that. But the way to access that is also by calling 211.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I put AUW's 211 number in the mailer to the entire district. Sorry if they're watching for the high amount of volume of calls or something, but I'm not the only one, so.
Yeah, no, it's, I think, online resources are good for some people who can, see the list, see the map, who have access to the internet, or maybe, you have a friend who's struggling, or like a grandparent, and, you can access this list. But I think the great thing about 211 is it's more of a person walking through, the criteria with you. So I think, having both of these resources is important.
That's good. Yeah. Okay, so my last two questions are more fun. What are you doing to keep sane?
That's, going for walks. I live on St. Louis Heights, though, so it is quite a workout to go on walks here, but it is nice to get fresh air. And then I guess probably watching more Netflix. I
Tiger King.
I've watched Tiger King. You've been watching The Circle also, which it's kind of a terrible show, but it's fun to watch with your friends. And Netflix Party, the Chrome extension.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's Like Netflix's dumb reality shows are the perfect type of shows to do a Netflix party with, because you only need to pay like 50% attention to what's actually going on.
Oh yeah, you can laugh with them too.
Yes, exactly. I mean, you kind of need someone to watch the absurdity with you. But I also did start watching this show called The Hot Zone, which came out last year. Have you heard of this?
No.
So this was actually a book it's a nonfiction book that I read in middle school that was about researchers studying like the most deadly diseases, and then the story is sort of about how they feared that there could be an Ebola outbreak in Washington, D.C., or like just outside Washington, D.C. And this is a true story. So last year, I guess coincidentally, National Geographic did a 6-episode series dramatizing this this book, and it's really it's like, wow, like this is, you see like how the government is like thinking about its response to this possible epidemic or outbreak, and it's like, wow, this is exactly what happened in this case. There's some valid points, but yeah, I don't know. Like, if you want to get your mind out of the pandemic stuff, you probably shouldn't watch The Hot Zone. But if you just really want to lean into it and like think about Ebola, then this is a great watch.
Yeah, I finished watching this one show called Containment or something.
Oh, okay. What's that on?
It's about a pandemic it's about a disease that breaks out in this one neighborhood in Georgia, Atlanta, and they do everything they can to contain everyone in it.
Oh,
and
wow.
It turns out that the government was behind it the entire time to test biological warfare.
Wow. What is it on Netflix?
It's on Netflix. It's only one season too, so you can just watch the whole 13 episodes and you're done.
Maybe I'll check that out after this.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So my final question is, a lot of our businesses, especially our restaurants, are suffering. What is your favorite restaurant that you would go to get takeout right now? Say it's dinner time.
Yeah, to get takeout. See, my first thought, I was gonna say this restaurant called Moki's in Kaimuki. It actually was in Kailua originally, but they do like mostly breakfast.
Yeah.
And this is a restaurant that my family would go to almost every Sunday. We would go to the beach, and then Kailua Beach, and then we would go to Moki's for brunch with our family friends. And then they opened one here on Kaimuki on Waialae. So that is honestly the first restaurant I would go back to. After this, for dinner, there are just so many good options. I would just like go down Waialae and stop and go to like one every night. One of my other favorites that I think is still open, or at least it used to be, Pipeline Bakery.
I think they are. I don't know. I haven't.
Yeah. I should check if it's still open, but it was for a while, after all this started. But they have this incredible dessert that I love, called the mala mode, which is malasada with ice cream inside of it.
Oh, nice. That actually sounds really good right now.
Yeah.
I didn't eat lunch, that's why.
And then, of course, Tamura's on Waialae too. I mean, I could just spend the whole day there and like go down all the shops and keep eating every hour or so.
Yeah, I'm thinking about getting takeout tonight for Waikiki too. Just Waikiki depends on tourism so much, so I've been doing my best to just go out and try to get as much takeout as I can because in Waikiki right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kaimuki is definitely a place to get food, though. I love Kaimuki.
Right. Yeah. No, it's and it's such a cool, neighborhood vibe. There's an Instagram account called Keep It Kaimuki that just constantly posts about like what's happening with the local businesses. That I don't know. It's just it feels like such a nice and neat community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right.
Thank you, Ryan. My next guest is Landon Lee, a student at the University of Hawaii, to talk about some of the resources that the University of Hawaii is offering students right now who are facing coronavirus. Here's that interview.
Thank you for joining us, Landon. Landon is a student at the University of Hawaii, and here he's going to talk about his thoughts and what the university is doing to support our students. Landon, thank you for joining me.
Hello, thank you for having me, Adrian. How are you doing? That's it. Yeah, to see you got a nice seat on the airplane there.
Yep, obviously this is not my house, even though I wish it is, because flying around is cool, but not now. Stay put, everyone. So Landon, UH closed their campuses and moved everything online. Are students being reimbursed for their dorm rooms or any other expenses at the moment?
So I think the question you're asking is like, or what kind of refunds are students
Yeah.
expecting, or can students kind of expect now that there's like kind of a perceived cutback in services? And this is a question a lot of students have. You know, it's being popped up along other universities across the nation, so it's natural that it only comes up here now, especially with the downturn in the economy. Like a lot of college students are already penny pinching, and now with all this stuff happening, it's even worse. So of course they're looking for whatever money they can get, and it, I'm in the same boat too. And as for what the university has said about refunds, the dorms will be refunded, and they will be prorated depending on when students leave. So it's going to be like they'll charge you for basically how long you've already lived there since the COVID-19 outbreak happened right in the middle of spring break. So that was halfway through the spring semester. So their students are very utilized of facilities and stuff there and maintenance. So they'll if they left the dormitories immediately after, they would get like potentially up to a half refund on that semester's housing costs. And this goes for meal plans as well, because you can't have dorms without the meal plans as well. As for other things like tuition, the university has yet to publicly make an announcement about what they're going to do for tuition. And many students are definitely asking and wondering, and we're already it's already 3 to 4 weeks before the semester ends, so a lot of students are still waiting on the edge of their seats to hear what administration has to say about it.
Besides that response, how do you think the university is handling this situation?
I think the university's been playing a very cautious side, in the sense that they want cautious in two senses. First off, being making sure that the campus and student body are safe and well prepared for the COVID-19 outbreak. So they shut it. They moved all courses online over the duration of spring break. So it was kind of like a seamless integration in the sense that like when students were gone, they could either stay away, or they could come back and like stay in their homes. So I would say they're cautious in the COVID-19 aspect, but cautious in the other aspect of like as well as like watching what other colleges are doing and kind of following suit. Because UH saw some like a lot of colleges are very cautious, like such as Harvard. They took the
Mhm.
extreme measure of overnight in the middle of spring break, closing all the dormitories on their campus, and this left a lot of students homeless because many students they can't afford going back home because they can't get the plane ticket, or they're an international student, so going home would mean quarantine or maybe even worse for them. So UH has seen these kind of lessons. They've been kind of playing it cautious and watching it, and they've realized that doesn't work. So at UH right now, the dormitory is open, but at the same time, I feel that UH is kind of because of the caution, it's a little bit slow to act. Like for example, the tuition question. This still has not been publicly addressed by the university, as they might be looking to see what other universities are doing or looking to see what's feasible for them. But I commend them and all the hard work that's the university has been doing in kind of making sure that safety is number one. But I think they could definitely work on getting more information out to the student body, because the less we know, the more confused and anxious we are during these already trying times for us.
That's true. I actually know what Harvard has been doing because I've seen many of my friends who are currently at Harvard. They were all kicked out of their dorms with almost no notice. And I kind of made it clear to everyone, every high schooler applying for college right now, to look at every university's response to COVID-19 and factor that into your decision when you choose a college. And I think UH is actually doing a much better job than some of our Ivy League universities.
Mhm.
So my next question is more student related. Um, this is definitely having a toll on a lot of people. And I cannot imagine what it's like keeping up with your studies and being quarantined or isolated and away from so many resources and such as your friends and your support group, what mental health services are available for students, especially the ones that are in my district right now too?
That's a very good question. Students come to campus a lot more than just for education. Some people might think you just go for classes, but no. UH is a lot of students' places for hanging out, social interaction. It's a place to study and do work in the libraries. It's a place for them to physically work and generate income by on-campus jobs. It's a place for students to seek student services like mental health. There's a student health office, student veteran services, women's center. There's a family center there as well. There's so much that UH offers that does more than just academia, and that's what a lot of people don't realize. So when the campus shuts down, a lot of students who are reliant on these services are kind of left out in the dark. But what I can tell you is that these services, although they are now physically closed, they're still available online and still functioning at a distance. So you could always give them a call, send them an email, and still get access to whether it's the Women's Center, the LGBTQ plus services, or the veteran services, and so on and so forth. But for your question about mental health, there are a few offices on UH campus that are still physically open because they're deemed essential services. First one of that being is University Health Services. So like the health center, they offer insurance for a lot of college students who are uninsured because they come from either an international background or their parents don't have insurance coverage and they want coverage while at UH. So it's very important, obviously, during this time of global pandemic that we have a health office still open. Second thing that's still open is the student housing services. Obviously, as we discussed earlier, dorms are still open, so there needs to be that crew still managing the dorms. And the third thing is the mental health services, because obviously during these trying and really stressful times, students it's really tough. Like, you might be facing family issues now, or maybe economical issues because you lost your job or you can't get hours anymore because of this whole economic and state shutdown. So of course, this is all going to weigh even more heavily on you, or maybe it's even harder for you to like go to your classes now that there's no physical interaction or touch, or maybe you miss your friends or so forth. These are real psychological needs that students have. And for these reasons, the CSDC, the Counseling and Student Development Center at UH Manoa, is still physically open for walk-ins and phone-in appointments. They're also expanding more like telehealth models. So in case you don't feel comfortable going on campus, you can definitely check that out. If you want more information about what's open for them, you can check out their website. Just Google up UH Manoa CSDC, Counseling and Student Development Center, and it will show you all their hours and new procedures for UH Manoa students seeking out these vital mental health care services. And if you want more information about what general changes are happening because of COVID-19 on campus, I serve on the student body government of UH Manoa as well, of ASU, known as ASUH, the Associate Students of the University of Hawaii at Manoa. And ASUH, we have just uploaded we made a COVID-19 webpage info page that kind of details all the updates that campus is doing with a list of all available student services as well. So you can just check it out on our website, asuh.hawaii.edu. But again, to again bring it back to your question about mental health services, they are available, and if you need them, please seek them out. Again, visit their website and contact them to see if you can schedule an appointment to come in.
Thank you so much. And yes, you also can reach that website on my own personal website because I'll be putting it up under my resources COVID-19 website. So it's adrianforhawaii.com/COVID-19. Thank you, Landon. So my next question is, have you been in touch with any students, and, what are their thoughts about what's going on right now? Are they frustrated? Are they upset? Or are they more understanding?
That's a very good question. I feel like the responses have been very kind of appropriate for the kind of time we're going with, and it's a little bit of both. On one side, everyone understands the importance of public safety and health because the more we ignore this and pretend it doesn't exist and continue to go out and try to meet, the longer this whole thing is going to last because it's going to take a more while for it to go away if people are disobeying the stay in place orders. But on the flip side, people are obviously understandably frustrated because this has put a hold on a lot of people's lives. Study abroad measures have now just stopped. I was going to go study abroad, but all that's now put on hold. I don't even know if that's going to happen. Graduation commencement has been canceled. Commencement is such a big thing, especially in Hawaii. We have like some of the biggest graduations compared to other universities across the nation. Like we have those big lays. A lot of people are also first generation college students, such as myself, whose families wanted to see them walk. This is my graduating semester, but I've lost my physical commencement because of the COVID-19. So it's understandable why students are very frustrated by a number of things because of, just this pandemic happening out of nowhere. But at the same time, the students understand that this is not because this is like a together effort. This was no fault of one particular individual. That, for us to really get through this, we have to be united and understand that these measures have to be taken so that we can end these closures sooner. But I understand why there's frustration, and that sometimes boils up to, like, asking questions to administration or other students, like, when are we going to hear back about tuition refunds, or when are we going to hear back about the dorms, and so on and so forth. People are nervous and they're eager and they want to know. And I just want to assure all the students out there, and if they're listening, is just tell them that we can get through this together. But this doesn't mean that we just have to, like, take it. We just have to lie out and wait for it. If you have questions, be sure to ask them, because again, everybody's working hard, but we want to make sure that none of our voices are forgotten in this decision-making process, because these decisions have to be made very fast and effectively. But at the same time, we want to make sure that us students are still being heard throughout this whole process.
That's true. Any plans on welcoming back our graduating class for a commencement in December or next spring,
So,
or that you're aware of?
yes. So from what I'm hearing, commencement has been just postponed, so it's not closed. So it really depends on the situation, on how the COVID-19 situation kind of stabilizes or not. If it stabilizes early, like in the summer, administration has signaled that they're open to having a summer commencement for the graduating class of spring 2020. But if it does not stabilize, which by current trends it's really up in the air right now, but if it does not stabilize by the summer, then they're open to, like, having a separate one in the following fall 2021, I believe, semester graduation. So we would either join that graduating classes, because typically the fall semester's graduating class in during the winter commencement is typically smaller, so it could accommodate us, or they might hold a separate one completely, but in the same timeline. But that's all I know about commencement. They don't plan on forthright canceling it out. The question now is, like, will students really return back if it is held on a later date? Like, will we be in our jobs or at our next stages of our life? Will we want to come back? And I've asked a lot of my friends and other students about this, and I got a mixed answer. Like, some of them are saying, yeah, they'd be down. And I feel like this would not only be a Hawaii trend, but maybe a national trend, because a lot of college students across the nation, not UH isn't the only one who's postponed their commencement. Almost basically every other university has done it as well. So, um, if it does come down to a time where COVID is gone and commencements are being reheld again, I think there will be a large national push by many students to kind of rehold their commencement again. And I think UH would probably follow that hype train as well. So I think students would come back in that case.
Which brings me to my last UH related questions. It's more fun. If you could pick any commencement speaker at your commencement, who would it be?
Ooh, that is a good question. You know, there was one person. I was in this committee. I was in that committee to actually help select commencement speakers. One speaker we were trying to get for a good while was Barack Obama, actually. If you didn't
Nice.
know, Obama's half sister, Maya Sotaro Ng, she teaches at the University of Hawaii. His parents met at East West Center at UH. So it's only fitting we felt that, like, he would come back and visit the school, a school that which his half sister taught at, a school that which his father and his mother both met at. We felt it would be good for him to come, but his schedule is really hard to meet. But I would love to have Barack Obama come speak, because it really shows people in Hawaii that what they can do, because UH is made up about like 60, the majority of UH students are in-state students, and a lot of people from Hawaii, there's a lot of like feeling about, like, you don't want to rock the boat. We feel we're people in Hawaii, for better or for worse, we like living day by day. We don't ever go out thinking we're going to change the world, but here we have someone who's brought up in Hawaii, who has went on and it ended up becoming the president of the United States from this small island chain. And I think that would be so empowering to hear his story being shared with our local UH graduates, because a lot of people, there's a big push for a lot of local high school students to go off island for school. They say that, oh, UH, you can't really do much because it's in Hawaii. You know, you want to go off if you want to become a big player. But I think if we can get someone like Obama to come speak, someone who came from the islands and made it that far, it would go volumes to speaking like what talent and power the islands have on its local communities and how far we can go. So if there's somebody who I would want to speak at our commencement, it would be probably Barack Obama.
Awesome. Me too. I wish he spoke at my commencement. So what are you doing to stay sane and you know, not go crazy during this pandemic and lockdown?
That's a very good question. I think a good way to stay sane during this time is probably finding a new routine. I know it's probably easy for everybody to just like wake up and just do nothing all day, or like check your email once or twice and just do whatever you want because you're bored in the house,
Mm-hmm.
and just go back to sleep, and you lose track of time. Like, and that's kind of happened to me until I kind of picked up a new routine. So I think having a routine is good. It's hard, obviously, without school to reinforce that routine or work to do so. But something I recently found was I found a new job, surprisingly, right, during this time.
Yeah.
I'm working at a law firm office now, um, and they're deemed essential services. So that has helped reinforce my routine. But for other people, these online Zoom classes that they have to be up for have now also helped reinforce a kind of schedule. But one thing I would say to help everybody stay sane is working out a schedule, like maybe waking up at a consistent time so you don't just sleep your day away and find yourself being a nocturnal owl, or and just setting a schedule for what you're going to do, whether it's cleaning up your house, picking up a few plants, reading a book. If you have that personal thing that you said, oh, I've always wanted to do this personal thing in my life, like rearrange my room or something, but I never could because I didn't have time. Well, now you have all the time in the world in your house. So I think,
Mm-hmm.
again, a great way to just kind of stay sane is figuring out a routine with things that that were on your backlog. Maybe there's something you wanted to do, whether it be like pick up a new skill at home or just do more home workouts, whatever it is. I think just building a routine so that you don't slip into that wake up at 1 p.m. every day and go to sleep at like 2 a.m. every night doesn't happen to you. It's good to have a routine so that you just don't become kind of lethargic and lazy and lose sight of the days.
Awesome. That's kind of what I'm doing. So I do go for a little jog that is like 8 miles, little jog. Um,
Woo, that's
yeah, it keeps me sane. And I don't jog next to a lot of people, and I jog alone, even though a ton of my friends asked if I wanted to go jog with them. And, it sucks that I have to say no, but, it's for their safety and it's for mine.
I think jogging is a good idea too. I should have spoke a little bit more about that. Because I work, I have the chance to leave the house. I think, being in the house all the time isn't so good as well. If you're one of those people like me who just can't stay cooped in for too long, the stay-at-home orders like still allow you to go out and exercise, go for a run and
Mm-hmm.
stuff. I think going out for a breath of fresh air and just really like remembering that, the world is still intact outside. We're just inside for this brief period of time will help us to get through it. I don't want us to all emerge and like it's like seeing the sunlight for the first time. You're like, what is all this? I think it'd be good for us to all just if you're that kind of person, you feel comfortable to go outside for a little bit, go for a walk, go for a run or something, because that outside touch is still very important because we're going to need that when we adapt back to regular
Yeah.
functioning once this COVID-19 pandemic is gone.
Yeah. And finally, I ask this to all my guests. Name a restaurant that is open right now that is your go-to restaurant that people can order takeout from. Try to help support local businesses.
Ooh, a restaurant.
Yeah. Or a
I have,
takeout.
yeah, a takeout place. Yes, yes. Um, a place that recently, whenever I go out now, I only go out for one thing because it's something I can't really do or make at home. It's poke. I
Mm-hmm.
love poke. Like I can eat it much. I'll probably get mercury poisoning one day because of how much fish I eat. But I just love poke. And I have to say, one place that has some pretty good takeout, I would say, would be the Maguro spot. I mean Waikiki.
Oh yeah,
Pretty
it's my
good.
district.
Yeah, I know it's very good, competitively priced. I'm in Waikiki sometimes, and whenever I stop by, especially now they're still open and they're still offering some pretty good deals, and I love their poke. Um, Again, I whenever I go out, it's just for poke. So I recommend Maguro Spot if you're in the Waikiki area.
Awesome. Maguro Spot, everyone. Go check them out. They actually have some really good food. All right, thank you, Landon. Thank you so much for joining me. That was a lot of good information and resources for UH students. All right.
Thank you, Landon. That pretty much does it for me today. Oh, right, the dad joke of the week. I was gonna tell a construction one, but I don't really have anything prepared because I'm still working on it. Thank you for tuning in. Stay safe and join me next week to see how I do on the Roger Federer challenge. If you don't know what that is, you're gonna have to tune in next week to find out. I might embarrass myself. But again, my name is Adrian Tam. Stay safe and good night.